Today is Wednesday, July 15th, 2026, and today is National Gummi Worm Day, which means someone, somewhere, is about to insist they only taste right if you bite them in half first. I don't know why, but they're probably convinced it's true. But after digging through today's stories, I noticed they all had something in common. Each one outlived the people who created it. One stone unlocked a language that had been silent for centuries. One small airplane company changed the way the world travels. And one institution lasted far longer than almost anyone would have wanted. Welcome to Wait, That's Random, This Day in History. I'm C.L. Burns, voice actor, audiobook narrator, and a person who keeps discovering that history is somehow both fascinating and deeply concerning at the same time. On July 17, 1799, French soldiers working on a fort in Egypt uncovered what looked like an ordinary slab of dark stone. At first, there wasn't much to see, just lines of carved writing. But that stone would become one of the most important archaeological discoveries in history. Today, we know it as the Rosetta Stone. Its importance wasn't what it said, it's how it said it. The same decree had been written 3 different ways. Ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, Demotic, the everyday written language of Egypt, and ancient Greek. For centuries, scholars had been able to see hieroglyphics. They just couldn't read them. They had become little more than beautiful symbols carved into temples and monuments. The Rosetta Stone changed everything. Because scholars could already read Greek, they finally had a way to compare the texts and slowly unlock the meaning of the hieroglyphics. Years later, Jean-François Champollion would use the stone to crack the code that had puzzled historians for generations. Suddenly, thousands of years of Egyptian history could speak again. I've always loved that one of history's greatest breakthroughs wasn't discovering something new. It was finally learning how to understand something that had been there all along. Our next story is another reminder that sometimes the smallest beginnings have the longest reach. On July 15, 1916, a company called Pacific Aero Products was founded in Seattle. It wasn't called Boeing yet. That name would come later after the founder, William Boeing, reorganized the business. At the time, aviation was still in its infancy. Flying itself was barely more than a decade removed from the Wright brothers' first successful flight. Airplanes were fragile, expensive, and many people still weren't convinced they had much of a future. Boeing believed otherwise. The company began by building small seaplanes made largely of wood and fabric. No one could have imagined that this tiny manufacture would eventually help shape commercial aviation, military aircraft, spacecraft, and even the International Space Station. Today, millions of people board airplanes every day without giving much thought to the companies that made modern air travel possible. It's funny how quickly revolutionary technology becomes something we barely notice. And our final story proves that not every institution deserves to stand the test of time. On July 15, 1834, Spain officially abolished the Spanish Inquisition. Even today, the phrase, "nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition," makes a lot of people think of a comedy sketch. The real history was anything but funny. The Inquisition had been established in 1478 to identify and prosecute religious heresy. Over the centuries, it expanded its authority and became one of Europe's most feared institutions. People were investigated, interrogated, and sometimes tortured. Its influence stretched across Spain and much of its overseas empire. What's remarkable isn't just that it existed, it's how long it existed. The Spanish Inquisition lasted for more than 350 years. Generations were born, lived their entire lives, and died under its shadow. In the early 1800s, changing political ideas and growing pressure for reform made the institution increasingly difficult to justify. Then, on July 15, 1834, it finally came to an end. History often celebrates the beginning of things. Sometimes, the ending deserves just as much attention. And looking back across today's stories, they all left marks that lasted far beyond the people who created them. A stone preserved a forgotten language. A small airplane company helped shrink the world. And the end of a centuries-old institution showed that even long-standing systems can eventually change. And that brings us to someone whose work has endured for more than 400 years. Born on July 15, 1606, Rembrandt became one of history's greatest painters. His portraits were remarkable not just because they looked realistic, but because they felt human. He had an incredible ability to capture emotion through light, shadow, and expression, which makes it just a little strange that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles never named one after him. Think about it. Leonardo, Michelangelo, Donatello, Raphael, all brilliant Renaissance artists, but somehow no Rembrandt. Apparently, dramatic lighting and deep emotional self-portraits weren't considered essential ninja skills. In all seriousness, his influence on art has lasted for centuries, and his paintings continue to inspire artists around the world. And while looking back across today's stories, I kept thinking about the things that outlive the people who create them. A carved stone continued teaching the world thousands of years after it was made. A small airplane company helped change the way people travel across the globe. The end of the Spanish Inquisition closed a chapter that had lasted for centuries. And Rembrandt's paintings still invite us to stop, look closely, and see something new every time. Anyway, that's what I found while exploring July 15th. And before I go, here's today's oddly appropriate quote. "The only thing new in the world is the history you do not know." Harry S. Truman. If you'd like to hear more of my work or explore the various projects I continue accidentally collecting, you can find everything at waitthat'srandom.com. I'm C.L. Burns. Thanks for spending part of your day here. I'll see you tomorrow.